Gentleman yields back. Please be responsive to her question in writing, Director. Director, I'm yielding myself 5 minutes for questions. Thank you for being here before us to answer the committee's questions. We always are grateful for your visits annually or more frequently as needed. Can you provide for the record to me in writing, not try to rattle it off, under your statutes that you're responsible for as delegated to you by Dodd-Frank, which ones go through OMB review? Or can you testify today that all regulatory rulemaking proposals issued by the CFPB don't go through the OMB clearance process?
There are aspects.
It's a mix, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a mix. There's aspects of our rules that do go through, I believe, the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs within OMB. I can't say for exactly.
Would you just submit for the record, educate me on what does and what doesn't as it relates specifically to your agency?
Sure.
Because that's, I think, important for our work. It allows us to be a better judge of APA compliance by the agencies under our oversight jurisdiction. But you would agree that CFPB, you would consider it an independent agency?
Yeah, so the way in which our enforcement supervision is really totally independent, we go through a process to make sure that there is any unnecessary interference in our enforcement.
Yep. So that's why I wonder if it's then appropriate for you to associate yourself by coordinating, 4 or 5 months out from an election with the White House for a press rollout of a new proposal on medical debt. Do you think that's in keeping with your role as an independent regulatory agency?
Well, it's certainly consistent with my predecessors. One of the things that has been a better part of what we've been doing is coordinating broadly with other agencies. So for example, some of the work we're doing on data protection isn't just going to impact consumers. There's some real national security equities there. So a lot of what we do is in coordination, and actually we're required under our statute to be in coordination. And let me just say, Congressman Hill, if I will stand with any of you who wants to join me in celebrating the successes of the CFPB and what we're doing for consumers.
Thank you, Director. Always smooth in your answers. One of the ways that the CFPB was insulated in a big picture way, of course, has been debated here recently and gone before the court about the way the agency's funded. Can you state for the record how Dodd-Frank directs that the CFPB should be funded on an annual basis?
So the CFPB is a unit of the Federal Reserve System. So we are funded a very similar way that the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, except we are not able to set our budget. I can request to the Federal Reserve Board transfers from the Federal Reserve System in the same way they transfer monies from the Federal Reserve banks to fund their operation.
But you do set that amount. They don't set the amount, right?
Well, actually, Congress sets the cap on that, and we have stayed below that cap.
And what is that cap?
We've been going through budgeting for the future, but I believe that it is set in statute, and then there is an index called the Employment Cost Index, ECI. Maybe that's the wrong acronym.
But is it a cap of a percentage of what, the Federal Reserve's earnings?
It's basically a hard number that is adjusted by that index year by year. So it doesn't vary based on other performance. It's sort of a set number with a cost inflator.
When was the last time the Fed showed a net profit? Do you know that number?
Yeah, so the nonprofits and government agencies, they don't report profit and loss in the way a private sector.
No, but they promote positive or negative cash flow. So when was the last time?
Actually, cash flow is a totally different indicator.
Okay, let's not. When was the last time there was a net positive result from the Federal Reserve? You know, the last time they generated a positive earnings?
I think the Federal Reserve Act would call it excess earnings.
Okay, when was the last time they had excess?
I believe
earnings?
that was in at the end, early 2023 or late 22. I can't remember the exact one. But again, so that uses different terminology.
That's true. September 2022. So good analysis on your part. But since then, the Fed has actually had a deficit in earnings of $172 billion.
No, that's not true. If you look at their audited financial statements, again, Just like in the private sector, nonprofits use different accounting terminology.
Yeah, but we're not debating that today.
Well,
That's not-
if you look at, I'm happy to supply you their audited.
Oh, I get it, I read it, I know what it says, and I know it's running a deficit. And therefore, instead of sending money to the Treasury, they're crediting a contra account of the Treasury. My point is that when you ask for funding, you're asking for that on top of their losses. I yield back, and Mr. Davidson, I recognize you from Ohio for 5 minutes.